games use children as horror devices because there's something unsettling about adding their innocence, small stature, and high-pitched voices to any supernatural survival situation. While some of these games aren't classified as horror, they still featured at least one kid who looks creepy or acts creepy. We ranked them by how much they affected us and how hard it was to get their image out of our heads. We would never want to harm any child, digital or otherwise. But these 10 kids better back off, or they're getting spanked. The Skull Kid has a completely mysterious background in the Zelda series, but takes center stage as the main antagonist in the bizarre story of Majora's Mask. While it's true that the world-ending antics are chiefly the responsibility of Majora and the Mask, it's clear the Skull Kid has some severe personality issues. There are some redeeming qualities behind the veil of misunderstandings, but his kleptomania and violent tendencies seem likely to keep him wandering the Lost Woods forever alone. The PT Sync Baby is frightening not only because of its Eraserhead-esque appearance, horrifying sounds, and ominous environs, but also due to its harrowing connotations. It is heavily implied that the Sync Baby is the unborn child carried by the game's problematic poltergeist, Lisa. Depending on your interpretation of the game's loose story, the child is either the player character's or perhaps the product of an infidelity on Lisa's part. Either way, it would seem that you, or some other murderous father figure, is to blame for the baby's beguiling, sync-ridden unlife. And there are only 8 things that are creepier than a murdered baby that just won't get out of your sync. Caught in a never-ending nightmare, Catherine's philandering protagonist Vincent is forced to confront his darkest fears and insecurities on a nightly basis. So it's no wonder that when his girlfriend tells him she may be pregnant, Vincent's slumber is disturbed by a manifestation of the baby from hell. Known as the Child, this nightmare spawn cannot be pacified as it chases Vincent up the tower, swatting at him and crying for its daddy. All this baby wants is love, and all we want is to wake up.
Yeah, that's not creepy at all.
Deep beneath the waves lies Rapture, a city trapped in time. Inside there are lumbering, almost indestructible beasts called Big Daddy, and residents that have genetically spliced themselves into insanity. But the most unsettling denizens of this supposed utopia are the Little Sisters. With bright, glowing yellow eyes and pale skin, they wander the damp hallways with massive needles they use to harvest a precious resource from whatever corpses they can find. They probably find us as creepy as we find them, seeking protection from their silent bodyguards. But we still have to stop them and their twisted little hobby. As the Witcher tries to find the Bloody Baron's missing family, you learn of the deep dysfunction within their marriage. Decades of bitterness, alcoholism, and abuse came to a head as the wife miscarried, leaving the infant's corpse behind when she fled. Unnamed and hastily buried, the unwanted child transformed into a botchling, cursed to feed on expectant mothers. With its bloated skin, extended tongue, and sharp rows of teeth, it's disturbing to behold. Yet, should you choose to remove the curse, the Baron must take this horrifying creature in his arms, comfort it, and bring it to rest. All without it biting his neck, of course.
You all think you can see me? You all think you know everything about me? Then try and catch me.
Mitsuo is the kind of guy that does things in the most uncomfortable way possible. The first we see of him is when he waits for Yukiko, a heroine in Persona 4, and then creepily asks her out after school, referring to her as Yuki. It turns out Kubo is also a murderer, responsible for the death of Kenshiro Moroka, a high school teacher. He feels required to kill in order to get noticed. To top it all off, his black eyes and blank stare make us uneasy every time we see him.
Help! Someone is following me!
Some kind of weirdo?
Spoiler alert, For those of you that never experienced the 1997 PlayStation 1 classic Clock Tower, which was technically Clock Tower 2, but the first was only released in Japan, the villain is an omnipresent serial killer named Scissor Man. Many didn't see the ending twist coming because Scissor Man is actually Scissor Boy. A young lad named Edward turns out to be related to the villains from the first game, out for revenge after his mother and brother are killed. We're not sure how the kid lugs around a pair of giant scissors at his age, but if you hear him clanging down the hallway, you'd better run. Silent Hill is overflowing with nightmarish monstrosities, and the Grey Children are some of the most bizarre of the bunch. These creatures have pale skin and slowly stalk their prey. Most Silent Hill enemies throw themselves at the player, using their bodies as weapons. Grey Children, however, wield long knives. Something about being stabbed by gross little kids fills us with a special kind of fear. The children come from the warped mind of Alessa Gillespie, a major character in the original Silent Hill, who was tormented by her classmates. If adults can mutate into necromorphs, then it's only fair that the sweet, innocent preschoolers of the Sprawl space station become infected as well. For maximum terror, their backsides are turned into bulbous sacks of explosive goo. They seem to be aware of their impending explosive demise when they scuttle out of the space station's crevices and swarm the player, giggling with delight. If you can get past the shock of blowing up children, you might still get unnerved by their speed and strength in numbers. They're only in Dead Space 2 briefly, but their reveal is one of the most disturbing parts of the game. What makes Alma Wade so creepy and dangerous is that she's out for blood and revenge. At a young age, she was experimented on in a series of secret projects by the Armicum Technology Corporation in an effort to make a profit off her latent psionic powers. Throughout the course of Fear, she appears in sporadic locations with a blank face. She haunts the player in such subtle ways that you may question whether or not you actually saw anything at all. Each time she appears, a trail of bloody carnage is left in her wake. The game gives you great powers, letting you slow down time and kill hundreds of soldiers, but Alma is always the one in control, right down to the ending credits. This week, Mike Huber and Elise Willems meet up to discuss the final spoilerific episode of Life is Strange, and we created quite a bit of chaos during our recent playtime with Just Cause 3. You can get caught up on all the explosive details in our recent preview. We'll see you next week for another creepy GT Countdown.